welcome to Speech Talk Live, episode number 27. My name is Jay Yoza, and I'm the host of this show. And today we have two people on. We have Fabiana Matano from Brazil, and it's our first time, so we're very excited to have her joining us. And of course, you all probably know by now Julie Finkelstein, who's a mentor for the Coursera's Introduction to Public Speaking. So one of the reasons why we do this show is essentially when I first started it, there were only 3 reasons. Now I think it keeps increasing. So, of course, the number one is to learn. And as I always say, that public speaking is something you have to constantly learn because nobody ever perfects this skill. So learning is a very important part of doing this show. The second one is to teach. Once you come on the show once or more than that, you have an opportunity to teach others based on what you're learning. So, and the reason I say that is that my belief is in order to become a good to a great speaker is you got to be a student, you got to be a teacher, you got to be a coach, and also you have to be a doer. There are no shortcuts to becoming a good to great speaker. The third thing that we do on the show is we share, and I share my speeches, Julie shares her speeches, and I think, Fabiana, you had recorded your introduction speech on the Coursera platform, which we're not going to review today, but that's what we do. We take people who want to come on, if they've done, let's say, an informative or a persuasive speech, then we use this show as a way to provide feedback and also for the person to do a self-evaluation, because the evaluation is based on what the person wants rather than us telling them this is what you should do. The fourth thing is support. This is a support community that we have created because people just don't get good feedback when it comes to speaking, because we all speak, so we don't even think about providing feedback. And this is a place where you get support from people who are in a similar situation, who are basically 4 things. So they're both they're student, teacher, coach, and a doer. And the last thing I'm just going to add, this is something I didn't add in the past, and it's a trust. When you come on this show, you have trust that the people that are on it are there to help you. So there has to be that trust, because otherwise it is very difficult, because people have all kinds of fear when it comes to public speaking. And what I'm trying to create here with people's help is to create a trustful environment where you don't feel like, oh, what if I make a mistake? There are no mistakes here. There's no ridiculing or anything like that. Otherwise, you're not going to be on this show. So I just want to make it clear. So today, this show is pretty much, we're not going to be reviewing any speech. This is going to be just a discussion today. And the first topic that I picked is something that I've been doing, and I'm going to give an update on that. It's this thing I'm calling it the 330 challenge, and I'll go into a little bit more detail why I like this. In the beginning, I wasn't sure about, but now I think there might be something here. In the second segment, and I created this catchy title, like how to turn a $10 speech into a $1 million speech. And I actually recorded this as part of my 330 challenge. So I'm going to be explaining it, and then I'd like your feedback. What do you think of it? And this third segment, I think, is kind of important. And this has to do with assessment. You have to assess. We do evaluation after each speech, but at some point you have to do an assessment on where you are currently and what you need to work on so that you can incrementally improve. So that's the show today, and at this point I would like Fabiana and Julie to do a quick intro. The one thing I did forget to mention is that after that we'll go into our 3-minute speech segment where you can pick any topic and talk for 3 minutes. It's a part of way of practicing. All right, so at this point, Julie, do you want to introduce yourself, and then Fabiana, and then I will take over and start the 3-minute segment. Okay?
Hi, my name is Julie, and I'm a fellow student and mentor in this class. And today I want to share some programs with you, and I preface this with that success is never an accident. To succeed in any goal in your life means practice, and public speaking is especially so. So participating is a great way to oomph up your skills. So I invite you to this program, Speech Talk Live by Jay. Also on Saturday mornings, I have a reading and discussion program for those people who would like a little bit more warm up. And we use the theme of uncovering our success as a platform to find books. Right now we're reading the 7 Habits of Successful People. I'm starting a Wednesday evening workshop collaboration, Succeeding from Vision to Action, and that will be, right now it's a phone call, a free conference call, but I'm open to change it to a hangout. And finally, I'm doing video commentaries and professors' lectures. That's my second round of working with this class. So please come and practice with any of these programs. And my name is Julie. You can email me at julieclw999@gmail.com for more information. Thank you.
Okay, Fabiana, quick intro, and then we'll move to the 3-minute segment.
Hey, I just want to say hi to everybody. My name is Fabiana Matano. I'm from Brazil, and I'm very happy just to being here for the very first time, and I'm here just to learn. I'm very excited. Thanks for having me on here.
Okay, Fabiana, thank you very much. Julie, one thing I like what you're doing is the video commentary on the course. I think that's going to be very useful to a lot of people. So thanks for doing that. Fabiana, you may want to mute your line. We're going to move to the 3 minutes. Okay, great. Okay, I'm going to take a brief pause and then come back so I can introduce the 3-minute segment. Okay, welcome back to Speech Talk Live, episode 27. And this is our 3-minute segment that we use in our show. And the purpose of this is to essentially practice giving a short speech. So I always go first, so I'll start with my speech. This time I picked a kind of a pretty heavy topic, actually. And the topic that I picked is kind of ties in with pivoting that startups do and pivoting that Gandhi did when he was working on his startup in South Africa. And you know, pivot is like when you're starting a business, at some point it's not working, you have to decide whether to stay the course or change the course. And often you have to pivot and change it based on the conditions, based on the customer feedback or acceptance. And companies often don't do that, and they struggle, and with startups they end up in a zombie state, and then they're pretty much dead at that point. So I was trying to explain that, and this is one of the blog that I had written a while back. It's one of my most popular blog. Every time I publish it, I get so many retweets and likes. And I drew this analogy to what Gandhi was doing in South Africa. A lot of people don't know that. They all think that Gandhi just started this freedom movement in India and he just succeeded and British just left. It was nothing like that. He basically, he was born in India. He went to Britain to study, and then he went to South Africa. And he stayed in South Africa for many years, actually. And one of the key years that is very important for people to know is 1913. 1913 is when the independence of the India was baked. Of course, the independence didn't take place till 1947, but 1913 was a critical year, and I'll explain. So Gandhi was doing all this experiment with passive, resistance, and in a sense, he was essentially a failure. The whole movement wasn't going anywhere. It was like a startup movement. I don't believe he's ever had more than 16 people, because let's face it, when you engage in peaceful protest, people were getting arrested, they were losing business, and most of the people that were part of his resistance movement were his family members. But then something happened that kind of fell into his lap in 1913. There were these indentured laborers who were brought from India to work in South Africa in mines, and they were not happy with their working condition. So they, left their job. They walked out as a protest. And they really didn't have a leader who was actually organizing them. They just were fed up with the working condition, because the person who was assigned to really address their conditions didn't care. He was morely into focusing on the owners, the mine owners, etc., realtors, people who own land and all that. He didn't really care about their working condition. So Gandhi essentially represented them, and he had never focused on these indentured laborers, because if you know anything about India, we have this caste system, and these are people who are from low caste, and Gandhi never focused on them. He thought that people who would really understand this peaceful, nonviolent movement, resistance, would be educated people. And when this happened, he was able to organize them and get them the conditions, some of the conditions they were looking for. And what this did was that finally, this was the pivot that Gandhi didn't know before, that the success of his movement lay with these indentured laborers, poor people, not this so-called educated people that he was focusing on. And what made Gandhi the person who could lead India to freedom was that he developed this insight that nobody in India had that. So when he went to India, he knew how to mobilize all these poor people and make him part of this massive nonviolent movement. And only Gandhi could have done it. Other people were smart. I mean, they had lawyers and all these other people, but they had no clue how to gain independence in India. They just thought that, oh, we'll just go and attack them. We'll just start a revolution. And Gandhi said, that's not going to work. And it was Gandhi, that insight that he got from that indentured laborer strike, gave him that insight that changed the history. So I just wanted to kind of discuss that here as part of my 3-minute speech, because a lot of people don't understand it. They just think that Gandhi just was doing something in South Africa, then he just went to India, and that's how India got freedom. But the key year to remember is 1913. If he had left South Africa in 1912, we would have never known who Gandhi was. That 1 year made the difference, and that 1 year essentially fell into his lap. It wasn't something that he was driving. So anyway, that's my 3-minute speech. Julie, do you want to go next?
So, hi, again, I'm still Julie. That hasn't changed. And I want to continue this theme of that success is not an accident. Success is something that you work with. So Churchill, when he was became the leader of the Western movement to Nazi, he said, I spent 20 years preparing for this position. And to me, there's two aspects to me that are like a core instrumental components to success. One is having a vision. And this was born out in Harvard University. A class of students, one group was asked to do a vision statement, and another group was left to be controlled. And 90% of the students who made a vision statement succeeded in achieving their goal. And the other side was maybe 30%, much lower, significant difference. So the other thing I believe to manifest your vision and to successful is to work with other people. And to me, that's communication. So being able to speak and influence people, this was in the week 1 lecture in Professor McGarity, is the power of communication, the power of public speaking is necessary to reach your goals. I have found not just taking this class, but participating in this engagement, such as with Jay and the other programs, to be very instrumental in success, in achieving success. Because success, as I said earlier, is not an accident. It requires you to practice. To participate in a group actually warms up, like quantumly accelerate your ability to achieve the goal for several reasons. One is that when you work together, you have a greater sense of commitment to it, in the sense that, I have a study buddy in this class. And I know I want to get my homework done because I don't want to let him down. So it increases my sense of commitment. The second thing is I get more resources and support, both in terms of emotional support and intellectual support and engagement, participatory support, because speaking is not something you can read about and become good at. So Professor McGarity again used the idea of athlete. You don't learn to ski, you don't become a good skier by reading about skiing. You gotta go out and do the skiing. And so finally, communication, it turns out we said this already, is you can't do anything without communication. And so it is the fabric which knits all our lives together. Every relationship we have, whether it's work, personal, or even private, interpersonal, like people in your family, intimate relationships, interpersonal, or even your own internal relationship with yourself, require a certain level of communication, but either writing, verbalizing. So the canons of rhetoric, invention, analysis, organizing, delivering, and also, even though it's not in the canons, it's being able to flow a speech, to take good notes. It's a wonderful way of having all these component skills for success. Furthermore, when you practice speaking well, you are manifesting success, so that is already a pathway for your success. So practicing in this speech, such as Speech Talk Live, come to my reading program, or even the Wednesday evening where you actually work on your visions, it's a wonderful way for you to succeed in your life. So with that, I turn back over to Jay. That keep on practicing, and your success will not maybe accidentally. It appears accidental, but it's real. Thank you.
Yeah, Julie, that was good. I like what you said about. I like this thing, which I think at some point you may want to expand on that, having a study buddy, because a lot of people don't have that. And what would you suggest that they do when they want to improve? Because I think a lot of people don't finish the course because they don't have a study buddy. So that's something you may want to expand on it, on how to find a study buddy and what should you look for in a study buddy. So you can expand on that maybe as a separate video and then post it, because a lot of people, I agree with you, study buddy makes a big difference. All right.
Well, you're my study buddy. I'm here every week.
Yeah, no, but the one you're going through the course with. But anyway, yes. I'm giving you a homework.
Yes, I get that. Thank you.
I'm giving you some homework to do, because if you come on this show, you need to get some homework. Otherwise, I'm too easy of a host here. So, Julie, that's your homework. Fabiana, it's your turn now, so I'm going to mute it, and then it's you got 3 minutes, and you can go longer if you want. Go ahead, okay?
You to come to Brazil on your next vacation. But why Brazil? I'm not talking about evident, obvious points like carnival or nature or soccer, but I want to talk about a different mindset here, because here Brazilians don't associate time with money, so we can talk to strangers on the street all the time. We don't care about that. So if you are here like having fun during your vacation, you can grab some attention from Brazilians, and we can into time management, because I have many goals just to achieve. So I take care of my time very carefully. But even if a stranger comes to me on the street and wanna talk something, I can stop everything I'm doing just to give some assistance. A deep, serious talk, and we Brazilians are like that. So if you are on the street on vacation, you Americans, and oh my gosh, I don't know how can I interact with people in Brazil? How can I know their culture, their mindset? Don't worry, Brazil is the place for you to come, definitely, and then you can have a great time here. Thank you.
All right, I think I'm getting on a plane to go to Brazil. Julie, Julie, are you excited to go to Brazil?
I want to talk to Fabiana.
Where in Brazil do you live?
São Paulo.
Oh, Sao Paulo. Okay, that's the big city, right?
Our biggest city. Yeah, that's the biggest one.
That's the biggest, and that's where all the businesses are, right? Most of the businesses are in Sao Paulo.
Yes. Business, money, everything we have here.
I was supposed to be in Sao Paulo maybe, close to 10 years ago, and it didn't work out, so. I was supposed to make a business trip.
What happened?
It was supposed to be a business trip. We were trying to establish, I was working for this company called SunGuard Higher Education. We were trying to set up, bring their software. It was an education software for universities. And the executives just kept on delaying it. They were playing it so safe, like, what if this doesn't work out, that doesn't work out? And all we're trying to tell them is sort of like what I just gave my speech on. I said, just go in there, try it. What's the worst that can happen? If it doesn't work out, then we're out. And everybody wants to be in Brazil because there are two countries you have to be in, right? In South America, Brazil and Mexico. And Brazil is the must, that if you want to succeed, you got to be in Brazil. But these people, executives just took their time, and eventually I ended up leaving. So I don't know what happened. So I didn't get to go to South. In fact, I had even purchased the Rosetta Stone on how to speak Portuguese, and I didn't get past, a couple of words now. So, in fact, it's interesting that I come from India, right? I was born in India. The word Bombay actually
really?
comes from Brazil. Bombay, it was Bombay, something like that, and then it turned into Bombay, and now they changed it to Mumbai. Mumbai. Okay, so everybody, we're gonna go to the next segment. So that was very good, Fabiana. So see, you did it. One thing I'll comment is somehow your audio was breaking up. So I just wanted to let you know that when you watch it, it breaks up. But I didn't want to stop it because I'm not sure there's much we can do from here. So you may want to check and see if the connection it could be the connection issue. But just wanted to let you know that the audio was breaking up a little bit. So some of the things you were saying I didn't completely make out, but it sounded good. So I just wanted to let you know. And one thing I got was that we should be coming to visit Brazil soon. You should be part of their, what do you call those? People who kind of get people, like not in the tourism, what do they call that? The tourism advisor or something like that, right? Okay, if you can mute your line, we'll go to the next first segment, okay? Okay, great. I'm going to take a brief pause and then we can move to first segment. Okay, welcome back to Speech Talk Live, episode number 27. And in this first segment, we're going to have a discussion on essentially how to go from good to great speaker. And one of the things that I kind of floated, I guess maybe 2 shows ago, something that I just said, something we should try, see how it goes. And I called it the 330 challenge. I didn't have a good name, but it sounded good at that time. And what the 330 challenge is the 330 is that if you want to improve your public speaking, you got to do a lot of speeches. You can't just focus on one speech. So this is sort of like a quick speech that you work on, but you record so many that after a while it just becomes a habit, and that's something that Fabiana can talk more about. She's currently reading a book on habit, so she's a habit expert. And so what I'm trying to do here is to turn it into a habit, so it becomes kind of subconsciously, you don't even think about, oh my God, am I saying this correctly? Or am I using the right gestures? Because you'll have 30 videos recorded, and you can make this private or you can make it public. In my case, I made them public. and that way you can go back and see how you did. And after a while, once you do, you become a natural, because that's a lot of videos you're talking about. 30 videos means you're essentially spending close to an hour per video if you want to do a decent job. So you're talking about 30 hours. And since you're recording so many, that you become good at it after a while. And at least that way you can establish your baseline. So the 330 stands for each video, try to make it close to 3 minutes and do 30 of them, 30 straight days. So each one day. And in the beginning it sounds like, oh, this is so hard, I have to come up with a topic. Don't worry about that. There's so much you can talk about. Because think about it, as soon as you get up in the morning, you're talking till the time you go to sleep. 3 minutes is not that much a time to give us to record a video. But here you can pick on any topic, something that you want to discuss, something that just Fabiana just did, talk about Brazil. Anything that comes to your mind where you think that somebody else would be interested in. Or even if you're interested in, that's just good enough. And the other thing I tell people is that quantity here is the important part, not quality. So do not do more than 3 takes. Because I'll give you the process that I use. So let's say I want to talk about this particular topic that I used about pivoting, that there's a commonality between pivoting a startup and pivoting a political movement. There's not that much of a difference. What I would do is I would just make a quick outline and saying, okay, talk about startup, then talk about a political movement and how are they similar. And that would be my outline, and then I would just from that, I would just give a talk on the first take. Then I would watch it to see if I can make it better, if I can refine it. If I can, then I'll do another take. And then if I think that I could even make it a little better, then I'll do a third take. But after that, I stop. That's it. I'm done. Then I'll move on to the next one. Now, there are certain things that I've learned, and I'd like to get your feedback, because I think Julie just started her 330 challenge. So these are the things that I've come up with. First of all, by doing this, you'll develop confidence. And, confidence is a word that everybody uses, but people don't really kind of define what confidence is. Unless you're doing it, you can't become confident. So you kind of work backwards here. We always work on like, oh, but I have to have a good idea. Oh, I have to be able to really speak in a proper voice, unless I have good gestures, body language. Those are all skills, okay? I would say work backwards and see, how are you resonating, like as far as your message? And then worry about what particular skill you would need to work on to make the message much more clearer, crisper, and more compelling. So focus on the end and then work backwards. So that way you'll at least have a body of work, and that creates confidence. So you don't want to lose track of that. The second is, and again, this is a topic that seems to come up quite a bit because I see a lot of email. I've subscribed to this thread on fear. I think unless you do a lot, you're not going to overcome fear, because at some point you just have to do it. And the 330 challenge, I don't think is that difficult. I know there are people who have difficulty speaking in front of a camera and all that, but I would just say just do it. It's private. Nobody, if you don't like it, don't make it private. Just record something. Just say, don't even record something. Just stare at the camera. Start simple, and then you can just read something. You can just pick a book and just read a paragraph. That's something that Julie works on in one of her classes. But start somewhere. In the beginning, just start looking at the camera for 7 seconds. Then you can start reading something, because when you're reading, you're not looking at the camera, so that shouldn't be that difficult at that point. And then slowly just start building it up from there. That's if you really have fear. And eventually, you will start overcoming your fear little by little. And that's how it starts. The third thing is that after you've done 30 speeches, you can start baselining your speaking skills. You'll have a good measurement on where you are. Because after 30 speeches, you pretty much know what you need to work on to get to the next level. And you'll have that confidence to know that too. And the last one I'll say is that then once you have 30, you'll be very attuned and focused on what you need to improve. So I think that the one that I just did a little while ago, I'll turn that into my 330, and that was my last speech. So I'm actually done for the 3:30 right now. So I'm feeling good about that. Julie, what do you think? Where exactly are you? And like, what do you like about 3:30? And what do you think that we could like? What could be improved as far as I don't know where you are with your 3:30. Maybe you can comment on it. I just commented. You've been seeing a lot of the 3:30 things that I've been posting, and the one that I just recorded just now, that will be my 30th. That's why I wanted to save it for today.
Okay, so first of all, thanks, Jay. I really think the 3:30 idea is excellent idea because one of the fathers of HAB psychologists who talks about habit is Malt, M-A-L-T-Z, and he says it takes 30 days to create a habit. Actually, what I found is before, like, I think that your ideas, your 3 points are really well taken. I find that one of the commitments I made with respect to the 3:30 is to review all of your videos and to make a comment on your videos. And that actually is a very easy entry into it because I see you again and again, and just a commitment to have to make a comment makes me watch the videos more carefully. One of my problems was I started a week ago, and actually about a week and a half ago, it didn't really work for me because there were too many topics, and then and I don't like the idea. For me, to do it 3 times is still a challenge. But so my commitment now is to do a daily commentary of Professor McGarrity's videos because one, I have already gone through it once. I have made notes for it, and it's available in my Google community. So this will be a good review and practice of the content of what it takes to be a public speaker. It takes away the challenge of having to invent an idea, and then I will be able, because there's a structure, it's easier for me to honor that commitment. Just by doing what you said, I started off a few months ago, as you recall, not consistently, doing doing audio recordings, 3 minutes, which is one of your suggestions. And so I've done a lot of these in different formats. I can feel that it's really working, and I'll talk more about it when in your next segment. In my opinion, as I watch the speeches you have made, I think you've become more organized and you've become more fluent, and your body language is more flowing. I know you have a back problem, but I would encourage a little bit more movement, which is something that Professor McGarrity talks about. He gave 3 hints for practice. One is don't stop. The second one is speak louder. And the third one is to move as naturally as you can. So I think, Jay, for you, your volume is good. You don't stop. So I think your next challenge for, just based on what little I know, is that you could introduce a little bit more natural movement into your speech. That's what I have. Thank you.
Yeah, so let me comment on that. The movement is going to be a problem because of the medium. I'm a little conscious of that because, like, if I'm staring at the camera, I don't want to move too much because it can become distracting. So I don't know how to overcome that because I've seen some videos where I moved a lot, and the feedback I got was, I'll try something new, like you mentioned, move a little bit more, but then also I have to make sure I have enough space here because I don't want to go out of the angle and then come back in, because then people think like I'm showboating too much. That might work when you have an audience. They don't notice it, right, because you're there. But if you're on a camera and you're moving too much, I don't know. I'll have to try to see. I haven't done it like that. So until I do it, it's kind of hard for me to see at this point whether that will be effective or not. But I take your point that there's one thing I need to work on is maybe a little bit more on the movement part. So that's a good feedback because now I have something to look into.
Yeah, if not move, maybe even just take one step back, but take a long time and then come back slowly.
Right.
And the other thing is maybe more gesturing. A
Yeah.
little bit more gesturing may help to increase the sense of dynamism.
Yeah.
That's,
Right. Right. Right.
thank you.
Okay. So one thing, let me just suggest one thing that you were saying about what you're doing. Like when you're going through these videos, because I do that too occasionally. I'll go through Dr. McGarrity's video. You can just pick one particular aspect of it rather than just give a complete summary of what he's saying and just say, hey, let me just tell you about this particular topic when it comes to invention. Because you have to have an idea, and one of the biggest problem that you are seeing with students is, or you can even give your own personal example since you have done a lot of speeches now, that one of the biggest difficulties that I see with people, and I see this with my dad, the other day I was trying to help him a little bit, and the difficulty is arrangement. People just have real tough time arranging their speech. So if you can become good at arranging your speech, then things start flowing. I think the two biggest parts are invention and arrangement. And we somehow don't think that that's the reason why you start getting nervous. Because if you know the arrangement, like I said, once you have a quick outline, then I already have the idea and I have the arrangement. Now I just have to speak through that arrangement. And it may not be fluid, but at least I have some sort of a baseline to work with. Fabiana, what do you think? You're reading this book on habit, and what do you think of the 3:30 challenge? Now that I know you're starting, so what is your opinion on this? What do you think? Is it a good, bad? What can be improved?
Well, actually, I am kind of experience a lot of resistance for me to begin. That's why I'm reading two books because it's I think it's a matter of our psychological, and we have the sense, in my case, I have the sense that, oh, if I get started, I can't finish at all. That's my brain, that's what my brain and my heart say to me. Oh, you are not able just to do it. So that's why I'm mustering up energy and courage, and these two books that I'm reading are helping me. And actually, Jay, you are great. You are also giving me a great support. And then I'm planning just to begin with my planning tomorrow because it's a Saturday. So if I do the first day on a Saturday and the second day on a Sunday, I can do it for a third time on next Monday. So let's see what happens.
Right. Okay. So, yeah. No, that's good. So, if I understood you correctly, you're saying that one of your area that you need to work on is that you can get started, but you have difficulty finishing. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
I
So,
think
go ahead.
no, I think it's like our thoughts are all negative when we are trying just to learn or start something new. So, oh, okay, I can do for the first time, but I won't have the time just to uh, going ahead with that for the second or the third days, and only negative thoughts come to my mind, and then I don't begin. No. So if I'm not able just to do something, just go to the end. I don't want to just to begin with that. So we are like preparing just to get it started. But sometimes I think it's we have a great thing with when we can begin and wait just to see what happens then.
Right. Yeah. So, let me comment on that. So, here's what I would suggest. This is because we all deal with this. One of the research that somebody, and I think this might have been from that course, Julie, that you took with that woman named Oakley, that Professor Oakley or somebody, about learning. And one of the things I think I learned in that class was that they found is that like people tend to read a book multiple times thinking that they'll learn more that way. And what they found is that you read the book once and then test it. And you learn more the more you test yourself. Instead of like, let me just read it, let me just read it again, let me just read it the third time, and now I'll take the test. And then they took some students who did it the other way, saying, I'll read it once, I'll take the test, I'll take the test, and I'll take the test. And they found out that the second group learned more. Now, that's what I'm trying to do here with 330, in a sense that the first time you record it, it's not going to be good. Just accept it. Second time, you can refine it. After you view it, just refine it. So let's say you're going to read this topic today, you said tonight, on keystone habit, let's say, right? So you could just have a speech on, just say, okay, so let me just define to you what a keystone habit is. So that's the definition. Then let me tell you something about a habit which I'm trying to turn it into a keystone habit that could lead to other things. Maybe I'm giving you already this chapter is about. So what keystone habit is that once you take like one habit and you change it, it leads to other positive things that were never something you were focusing on. So one of the example I think he gives in that book is Charles Duhigg, The Power of Habit, is like, let's say like somebody wants to get healthy. Healthy may not be the thing. Let me just think. Okay, speaking is a perfect example. So let's say somebody wants to have good relationships, okay? If somebody out there is having difficulty meeting men or women. Now, rather than just telling them like, oh, you just go to the dance and you'll just meet a lot of people like that, that's direct involvement. Instead of that, you work on a keystone habit like, hey, you know what? If you improve your speaking, then a lot of good things will come out of it. You'll have better relationship, you'll get a better job, and you'll be more successful. So the keystone habit turned out to be something like the 330 challenge. So I just giving you some idea on your next speech that you could work on after you read the book. And similarly, you can just discuss that, just like the way you're discussing with us right now. And that's how you can overcome your fear, just by just having this discussion. Like pretend like you're a teacher, you're trying to teach somebody. Julie, do you have any comments on some of the things that Fabiana said? What do you think? Because like, as you can see, that you somehow can relate to that. She's having difficulty finishing. She can get started, so maybe you can give her, what do you think, what she can do to overcome this?
Yeah, Fabiana, I think the heart of the matter is not just speaking. It must be hindering your success in life. If you think you have to succeed before you can take on a task. So I think in Zen, they said just take this breath. You know, the future is not here. So there's a term called future tripping. You don't want to be future tripping. You know, just stay in this moment. And actually, for you, the idea of a study buddy or bookend is very, very powerful because, in fact, I can be your bookend until your study buddy or your bookend until you find someone else. So you can email me. Let's say your commitment, like you said, is to do 3. Then email me your commitments and then just follow up. And also the concept there's no failure because you never know what's in that basket, you know. Just like coming here, you didn't know that you were going to talk to a woman from China, you know, or an Indian guy from New Jersey who lives in New Jersey, right? So there's always unexpected gifts. So I always look at it as like as discovery. I wonder what I will find out if I do this. Instead of saying, am I going to do a good job or not, it's what will I find out. So that's a very personal share on that. So.
Yeah, that's a good point. One thing I should point out is, and I think this is something a lot of people are dealing with because I see this in an email. The one thing, Fabiana, that just want to let you know is that speaking is risky. And if you're not speaking, then you don't present a threat to anybody, right? People will always like ignore you if you don't speak. So as soon as you start speaking, you are taking a risk. And so when you take a risk, that means that somebody's going to criticize you, no matter what. That's how it works. And if you dwell on the people that criticize you, then you can't really succeed because you're living their life. You just have to accept it that, hey, if I'm going to speak, there are people who are going to criticize you because it goes with the territory. And you just have to block it out and not worry about it and not even dwell on it. Because, like, I get criticized all the time. And, in fact, I even push the envelope a little bit because until people criticize you, you really don't exist because you're not presenting any kind of a challenge to them. So don't try to please people like, oh, I mean, you don't have to be rude, okay? By this, I don't mean you have to be outrightly rude, but you got to stick to your opinions on what you think. And if they don't like it, then let them come up with a better opinion. And if they say, well, that's a dumb thing, that's a stupid thing, well, then tell me about it that would make it better. So, like, let's say I gave a speech, and you saw that Julie just gave a feedback. And that feedback was a constructive feedback saying, hey, you know, maybe you want to step back and move. That's showing me what I should do rather than saying, you know, your speech needed more movement. That doesn't tell me anything. That's just, anybody can say that. But if somebody's not being constructive, then they're really of no help to you. So, yeah, because one of the things that, I guess because we've done it now for quite some time, we don't even think about it, but I can see that it can become an issue for somebody who's starting out, worrying like, well, what will people think? Don't worry about what people think. Except most think about it, they're not going to like it, but it doesn't matter. You just have to stay focused on what you're doing, which is, I'm going to record it, even if it's bad, because in fact, the bad it is in the beginning, it's better for you. So that later on, if you become really good, which you will, you can show them, like, look, here's where I was and here's where I am. That change is what you need to show. So I think overall, don't worry about it that if it's not perfect. In fact, perfect is going to hurt you more than anything. Just good enough is good enough. Okay? And no speeches are perfect, by the way. Okay? Speeches can never be perfect because no matter how perfect you are, there are always going to be people who are not going to like your speech. Okay? Any closing thought, Fabiana? Yeah, go ahead.
No, that's okay. I wanna just thank you too, both of you. You are great. And I'm mentally taking notes of every single word you are saying to me, and that's very important. So I will sleep on them, definitely. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, we like you already. This is all recorded, so you can then watch it. So you don't need to make notes. All of this is going to be recorded, so you can go back and view it and you know, study it, I guess. That makes me think like I'm saying something very important here. You can study what I'm saying and make it sound like I'm some kind of a guru here. Anyway.
That's okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So at this point, I'm going to take a brief pause, and we can move on to the next segment. Hi, welcome back to Speech Talk Live, episode number 27. And we're now moving to segment number 2. And in this segment, I made a video as part of my 3:30 challenge, and I provocatively called it How to Turn a $10 Speech into a $1 Million Speech. Okay. Now, it sounds kind of funny, right? Like, oh, this guy is like really like hyping this up. But I explain it that it's not that far-fetched. I mean, if you want to really succeed with your speech, so let's say you spend hours, days, weeks, months. If somebody after you give your speech cannot describe it in a catchy phrase, what your speech is about, then I'm going to ask you, did you waste your time, or what did you do? You just made noise, right? You gave a speech, but nobody remembered anything. And one of the key things in all speeches, which I hardly ever see, except unless you're like a real and expert speaker, you've got to figure out, you've got to spend some time to come up with something catchy that kind of encapsulates your main message that you're trying to convey. And if you can do that, then your speech is going to spread, and it becomes, it can lead to, you don't know what it can lead to. And I gave some simple examples in that speech. I took it from politics, and one of the most famous one that I gave was the O.J. Simpson trial, where his lawyer Johnny Cochran, made that famous phrase that everybody remembers who followed that trial, that if the glove does not fit, you must acquit. And even with all the evidence, with science and all that, it made no difference to the jury. The jury bought that, and they acquitted O.J. Simpson, who had, allegedly killed his wife and this other guy who had come to drop something off. And listen, if he could convince 12 jury, when this trial was one of the most famous trial, and it came down to that catchy phrase, there's something to that. So whenever you're working on a speech, and you're done, I would say spend some time and see if you can come up with a catchy phrase, because that suddenly can elevate the speech from nothing to something that people will remember. And it's something that I think a lot of people, I don't even know if people actually even teach that. They teach you a lot of things about speaking. Oh, you should do this, you should worry about your body language, this and that. No, you got to have a catchy phrase if you want your speech to really succeed. Julie, what do you think? Do you work on that at all?
Well, I try to do it in today's speech when I said success is not an accident, and I had a follow-up. To practice is the key to succeeding, and the key to success is practice. So I like the opening of success is not an accident, and then concluded with the key to success is to practice. Yeah, I thought that your speech was very organized. And I liked it that at the end, when you really want to make a point, you emphasized that you became louder and the pacing changed. Overall, I thought you were deliberate, so you were a little slow. But I don't think you need to, at least for me, because I've heard so many of your speeches. And the one thing is, since you used the word how to turn, I see, the key is to have a phrase, yeah, to have a catchy phrase. So, I would like to see the follow-up, because I'm convinced now. I would like to see a follow-up. How to create a catchy phrase. How to make a catchy phrase.
Hey, you're not allowed to give me homework.
I didn't say you have to do it. I said what I would like. I can always declare my desires.
This is my show. I only give out homework.
It's not homework. It's just a request.
Oh, I see. That's what you're calling it now. So the teachers can give out homework and say, oh, you don't have to do it. It's just a request. I got it. Okay.
No. You give homework. Students give requests. Professor, I don't understand. Please help.
Yeah, so let me address that question, because that's a good question. How to come up with catchy phrase. And if I could do that, man, I could make $1 million. Because I think the catchy phrase that I picked up from your speech, Julie, was this one. And maybe, I don't know if you said it like that or that's how I wrote it. Success requires practice. And what a catchy phrase, once you have it, you got to keep saying it over and over, because otherwise people will not remember it, right? In advertising, they say you have to see an ad 6 times. And on internet, you have to see an ad 20 times. So a catchy phrase in a speech has to be used multiple times. And the catchy phrase is such that alone pretty much captures what your speech is about. One thing I'll point out, and I think I might have said it in the last one of the lectures that we did, that in Hollywood, and I don't know, in Brazil it's the same thing. When you have a movie cannot succeed when somebody has a script for a movie. There are 2 parts in a movie you got to have in order for it to succeed. Well, actually 3 parts. The first one is called the tagline. There has to be a tagline. In a speech, that could be like a soundbite, right? A soundbite of a speech, you got to have that. Second one is a log line. A log line is that you got to be able to describe your movie in one sentence. If you cannot describe your movie in one sentence, it will not be picked up. People are not going to invest millions of dollars in making a speech. And the third thing that a movie has to have is that they got to be able to explain what that movie is about in a 30-second trailer. If you cannot do that, that movie is dead. People are just not going to spend $20 million, $50 million. It's essentially going to become a bust. And people in Hollywood know that. And I'm like, why don't people do the same thing when it comes to working on a speech? That's what one of the things that Fabiana we did a while back was some method that I'm creating called the lean speech method, and that includes this, right? That you got to have a tagline, you got to have a log line, and you got to have a 30-second, because that way you can test it out very quickly whether your speech is going to resonate. So, what do you think about it, Fabiana, as far as catchy phrases is concerned? Is it something you're going to add into your speech? You're muted. You got to unmute your line.
Well, so just to be honest with you, that's the very first time that I heard that catchphrase, so it's a new thing to me, and that's amazing because last night I spent an hour just to think about that, and some idols, some heroes that I have here in Brazil, they really do that. They really apply catchphrases for their marketing, for their job, and that's very interesting.
Oh, okay. Yeah, right. So the concept isn't anything that I've created. It's just that it works in marketing, it works in advertising, and my thing is you have to use it also when you're working on a speech, because essentially your speech is your product, by the way. You have to think of your speech as your personal product. And if you have a product, you got to know how to market it. You got to know how to sell it. Because a lot of people think of speech as just like, I'm just going to inform about what I know. It's not a brain dump. You don't give an information dump. A speech is a product. You got to know how to market it, and you got to know how to sell it. Otherwise, you're just wasting a lot of time developing your speech. It'll not meet your objective. So, and any closing thoughts before we move on to our next segment?
I think excellent idea, excellent concept. As Fabiana says, amazing.
Oh, okay. Okay, great. Yeah, I think this is something we can come back to. And if I'm next time when I give a speech, I'll tell you like this was my catchy phrase, or maybe play a little game. See if you can come up with the catchy phrase from my speech. And if you can, then you win a prize. You get an extra second for the 3-minute speech. Okay. See, Julie's happy because she needs that extra second. Oh, I'm going to, one thing before we move on, this has nothing to do with the catchy phrase, but it's an excellent quote that I came up with. And this is a very important quote. It comes from a golfer named Ben Hogan. And I'm going to read it to you, okay? And it's a little long, but I think it says a lot about how we can apply this to our speaking skills. And this is what he says. Okay, I'll quote. In 1946, my attitude suddenly changed. I honestly began to feel that I could play fairly well each time I went out, that there was no practical reason for me to feel that I might suddenly lose it all. I guess that what lay behind my new confidence was this. I had stopped trying to do a great many things perfectly because it had become clear in my mind that this ambitious over-thoroughness, my perfectionism, was neither possible, nor advisable, nor even necessary. All you needed to grow were the fundamental movements, and there weren't so many of them in my shot making started to take on a new and more stable consistency. Now, he's talking about golf here. And the key thing he's talking about it is that once he started not focusing on his over thoroughness, perfectionism, and he didn't even think it was even advisable nor even necessary. So what he's saying is that in golf, if he was scoring, he didn't worry about whether he was hitting the ball well and all of that. All that thing led to the score. So if your message is resonating, then don't worry about like, oh well, I need to, I need to have a better body language. I need to have this. I need to have that. Because once you do it that way, then you'll never get to the end. So I just thought that was a pretty interesting quote. All right, I'm going to take a brief pause and we'll move on to the next segment. Okay, welcome back. This is Jay Oza, Speech Talk Live, episode 27, and this is the third segment. In this third segment, I want to focus on assessment. And I know we're all trying to improve our speaking skills, and we all start out with goals. If you do, you know, one of the things I recommended is to start with a goals video on what you're trying to accomplish. But I think, and I think even we evaluate our speeches, but one thing you have to do periodically is do an assessment on, you know, where you are with your speaking skills so that you can you can improve. And I had actually had some questions that I had posted that maybe you may want to go over. So these were the questions that I had. Where are you right now? What you need to improve? What are you going to do about it? What is your time frame? And what happens if you don't stick to it? So I'll go first. So where am I right now? Well, where I'm right now, I would say is that I definitely need to. I'm pretty happy with where I am right now. In that today I finished my 3:30 challenge. So I'm definitely doing all the right things to become a better speaker. I need to improve few things. Some of it is kind of outside my control. I would definitely like to give a speech in front of a live audience and see how I can translate everything that I'm doing in video and on this show in front of a live audience. So I can only do what I can control, and I'm doing it through video and getting some feedback from people like Fabiana and Julie and others who are on the show, because that's the only way I can test it. Because other people are not going to spend the time that you guys are. So I thank you for doing that. It helps me too because I'm learning. The third question is what am I going to do about it? Well, I'm just going to keep on, you know, practicing, and also doing my own evaluation. Exactly what I'm doing here, teaching, because I think by teaching people that are coming on the show and also through the forum, I learn a lot. And one of the things that I had mentioned to Julie that I'm going to do is I'm going to create this video about how to overcome fear of speaking, because a lot of people really need that. And I think I can provide some help there based on my experience and learning from others on what's preventing them from becoming a confident speaker. So I think I could help there. So that's something I'm going to do by teaching, by learning, and also I try to coach myself, because it's very hard. Speaking, another thing that people don't realize is that you kind of have to become your own coach, because other people are just not going to spend the time. And if you're going to look for a real professional coach, they're expensive. And they have to be good too, and you have to be comfortable. And unless you get to a certain level of skill set, then you can go and look. Like, let's say suddenly you start working at a company, or you want to get to the next level, then it may make sense to say, okay, now let me see if I can get a professional coach. But still, you really have to know what specific things you want the coach to work on. So what is my time frame? That was number 4. I think my time frame is what I'm trying to improve is I think I've done the 3:30 challenge. I've done the only thing that I've really not done that I need to work on is to get more real live engagement to speak with people, because I think I'm doing all the right things when it comes to, and Julie can be my witness here, that I am recording a lot of videos. I am showing some improvement from one video to another, not from one to another, but like when you look at 30 of them, you do see some improvement as far as the organization is concerned, the arrangement. Maybe I can be more with my, I could use better gestures, maybe more movement. Those things I can work on. Yeah, sure. And what happens if I don't stick to it? Well, I'm going to stick to it. If I don't stick to it, then I'm not going to improve. So that's kind of my assessment, sort of going on the record, that overall I am pleased, but there's still a lot of room for improvement. And as far as my motivation is concerned, I take this very seriously. I take this show very seriously. So I haven't let up yet. I am in fact stepping on it, as Julie can tell, that I basically finished all my 30 videos in like less than a week, I think, a little bit more than a week. So I'm okay, but there's always room for improvement. Julie?
Thanks, Jay. Yeah, so in terms of where I'm at, I would say right now, as I was talking to Fabiana, is I discovered two things. I was very surprised. First of all, as an IT professional, I started a SQL user group. I attended many conferences where I spoke, and I spoke for clients on technical lectures. So I was very comfortable. So I thought this would be like just a brush up. So the surprise here is it's actually very, very difficult. And one of the things I found was my persuasive speech. I am still working on it because my first round, many people gave me feedbacks and to prepare just for this speech talk live. So this was very interesting because I thought it would be very easy. I've spoken in front of hundreds of people. So what have I learned that's not easy? I think there's two components. One is it's not easy for me to speak in front of a camera. When I'm in front of an audience, hundreds of people even, I can really feed off their energy. So I call myself having numbed up and dumbed down. And I think right now I'm finally, based on Jay's coaching of using the telephone and the 330, I am finally relaxing in front of the video camera. The other discovery was the unexpected benefits. And that is like meeting people like you, Fabiana, from Brazil, which I never would, or Jay. And in my, I started a Google community. I have almost 500 members. And I'm running several workshops. And there's people from India, people from Brazil, not you, someone else, and some people from Morocco and South Asia. So my circle of contact has greatly expanded. And so right now, my commitment is to do the 330, but I'm going to use Professor McGarrity's videos because there's a structure, and so I don't do it 3 times. I generally have only done it once. But because I'm so familiar with the material and I have an organization, I can do that. I know I will improve with the 3 repetitions, but my mind won't let me go there right now. So what do I need to improve on? I need to improve on being able to do those repetitions because I know there's a magic to the number 3. If I do something 3 times, it's actually based on the principle of science of chaos. It's all these beautiful fractal diagrams. It's when there's 3 parameters, and there's a lot of energy to the number 3. And the other thing is, I'm beginning to make better notes for this class. So those are the 2 areas I need to improve on, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to aim toward doing a speech 3 times, and I'm going to aim at making notes before I come to the class. In terms of future, I'm running 2 workshops that's success-oriented. I will continue to offer them. My goal is to do it both for individuals and organizations. Time frame, no time frame, just taking a very Zen approach. Every breath is the breath I take. Thank you.
Okay, Julie, that was excellent. So it seems like you're doing everything you want to do. There's nothing that you're not doing. I think the key word is that you're doing things. You're doing a lot of these shows. You're participating in this show. So I don't. I mean, the only thing I would say is just keep recording them, and that's about it. So you should be pretty proud of yourself as far as what you're doing to improve your speaking skills. Yeah, you should be proud. Take a bow. Yeah, Fabiana, do you want to do a quick assessment on where you are?
Well, at this moment, I just want to finish my Coursera course. I've just posted the first video, so I need just to go ahead. And of course, I'm starting tomorrow my 3:30 challenge, definitely. And I think that's good enough, because like I spent many years thinking about that, and then I couldn't start anything, so I'm happy that I'm talking to you right now, and that's enough. No time frame for that.
No, that's good. So you're very focused, which is good. That finishing the Coursera course, and you are going to finish it, right?
I hope so.
No, the reason I say that is that very few people actually finish that course. I don't know what the
Really?
Yeah, I don't know what the percentages are. I think it's like less than 1%.
I think it's like 1 or 2 in 1,000 actually.
Yeah, well,
The general average, and this is less than the general average. So
yeah, the reason I know is that
Wow.
at one time we worked with Coursera and we did a cohort. That's when you're on that community that was originally started with Coursera, and we had 400 students, and nobody got past the informative speech. So nobody recorded a informative or persuasive speech. So out of 400, nobody even got even up to the halfway point. So this is not an easy course, actually. It does require, because what
Really,
makes
huh?
this course so difficult is what Julie was saying, that once you start speaking and try to work on a speech, it can get very frustrating because you have to do it in front of a camera and the time it takes. And a lot of people, I guess, they don't like posting it and getting a feedback because some people will tell them exactly what they think, like, oh, you need to work on this. Because also a lot of things is that even though Dr. McGarity tells us exactly what kind of feedback you should give, but some people, like I've gotten some feedback where I've done a speech where somebody has given me 5 and somebody has given me a 1 saying, oh, you need a lot of improvement to work on. I'm like, but what? They don't tell me anything. And some people don't like that they get really they don't like that rejection, like, oh, I put in all this effort and these people didn't, because a lot of people are taking this course as students, they're not like professional in a sense of how to give feedback and all that. And I'm just going from my experience that I can do a perfect job on a speech. I mean, not perfect. I can do a very good job, but the ratings could come back from 5 to 1. It's like it can vary. There is not like, okay, this is okay. I mean, some of the speeches I've given are good speeches, right? And some of them will give me an excellent. But then there are some who'll give me like 1. You tried hard, keep working on it. I'm like, what kind of feedback is that? I said, there was a lot in that speech, and all the comment I got back was like, you did a good job, but you need to keep working on it. So there are people, I don't even know if those people are even watching the video. So be careful, like when you get feedback, you're going to get things like that. So don't take it personally, otherwise you
Mhm.
won't record any more speeches. Now, I'm not saying that has anything to do with it, but I suspect that it does, because sometimes feedback, you take it very personally when you spend a lot of time working on a speech. So I think you guys are all both on track. And any closing thoughts, Julie and Fabiana, before we close out the show? And I'm really
yeah,
happy, Fabiana, that you joined, because first show is the toughest. Okay, after that it gets much easier. So you should be proud of yourself that we're kind of scary, and you came on the show with us. As you can see, nobody else did. So you can see we tend to
so
scare off more people than invite them. We invite them, but they all get scared very quickly.
So
I don't know why.
Jay
Actually,
Fabiano gets a prize.
She stayed till the end. Julie, I think
and
it's
you
you.
didn't invite me, huh?
I think it's Julie that's scaring people off.
No, no, no. But
No.
anyways, I do want to follow up. And Fabiana, please jump in anytime. But I do want to follow up on this idea of feedback, because I think to be a good manager or a good leader, a good team player, uh, feedback is a really, really important skill. So in the spirit of constructive feedback, I think people should always, since we have a rubric, people should identify what basically for any feedback, they say that there's a 5-to-1 ratio. You really want to make people receptive to the ideas. You need to give 5 positive feedbacks for them to be able to receive, like, I think, Jay, you somewhere between 3 and 5. There were different social studies on that. But basically, you want to make people feel really warm and cozy before you can give people it's never should be never be negative, should be always constructive. And constructive feedback means, as Jay has said, it's always give people some options to explore how they can improve it. And I think that's a really key skill to be good managers, to be good leaders, to be good team players. And so I just really want to underscore again, when you work on the different skills here in the public speaking, these skills are generalizable and scalable to other situations.
Yeah.
I'll get off my pedestal.
No. No. I mean that comes up, and I think what the point that Julie's making is very important, because most people don't know how to give feedback, and the other thing is most people don't know how to receive feedback. In fact, I think we spent a couple of segments on that. One was receiving feedback, and one was giving feedback. And if you want to see how to do that, I'm not saying this is a perfect way. There was a person named Sajid. He came on with his speech on framing effect. And my rule is not to give people feedback. Feedback is something that you should be asking me. So the first thing I do is, like, if you were to give a speech, I would say, well, Fabiana, what did you think of your speech? And unless you give me the freedom to give you feedback, I shouldn't give you any feedback, because the feedback is something you control. I cannot give you an unsolicited feedback because you're not going to receive it anyway. So if suddenly, feedback is something I have to ask. Like I asked Julie, what do you think? So I'm giving her freedom. But if I don't ask her and she gives me a feedback, I will not take it anyway. In fact, I may resent it. So never give people feedback. Let them ask for it, and even then, only give it after they have pointed something out, like saying, maybe I could be more descriptive. Then you can point on that particular point. But if they don't use a particular word and you just give them a separate word that they haven't asked for it, they're not going to process it and even accept it. So we did a whole show on this, one segment on why feedback is so difficult for people. We all want feedback, but at the same time, you don't want to be rejected either. We all want to be accepted. So the question is that one of the things I've learned through experience here doing the show is that don't voluntarily give feedback. Let you first give your feedback on what you thought of your speech. And then you have to ask me, so what do you think? Is there anything specific? Unless you ask me something specific, my feedback, you're not going to value it at all. Any closing thoughts, Fabiana, before we end the show? And again, I want to thank you for joining. And like I said, first one is the toughest. So now it's easier. It gets easier from here on, so you'll have no problem, okay?
That's okay. So I want to thank you. That was a flawless experience to me, definitely. Thank you so much.
Okay.
And by the way, I love feedbacks, okay?
Yes, thanks. Thanks a lot. Again, thanks, Fabiana. Thanks, Julie, for taking time out. And believe me, when you come on the show, it's not just that you're helping yourself, you're also helping other people too. So think of that way. You're doing a service. You're actually serving other people out there who can't even do what we're doing. see, we at least are doing this. A lot of people want to do it, but they just can't take this next step. So we should take a bow and saying, yeah, we did this. Once you finish the show, you should feel good, because I always do. All right, guys. Have a good weekend, and I'll see you next week, okay?
Thank you. Nice to meet
bye,
you,
Fabiana.
Fabiana.
Okay, take care.
Jay. Bye-bye.
Bye.